There's many different types of cactuses and succulents from all over the world that come in really unique colors and shapes and sizes. I'm here today at Hewitt's Garden Design Center with Andrew, and this is a really specifically cool one. Tell me a little bit about this.
Yeah, so it's pretty rare. It's come into cultivation more recently, so you can start to see them now, whereas 15 years ago, this would have been unbelievably rare. People have kind of caught on to it a little bit, but it is very rare to see them this big. It's commonly called a ghost cactus, but it's just a white form of the Euphorbia trigona, which is pretty common. There's a rubra variety that's red, but this white one is special just because of how striking it is. And it'll stay white all throughout its lifespan.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be, here in Tennessee, something you wanna keep inside during the winter months, which is gonna be true of, I would say, like almost all the plants we have in here.
Sure.
Would love being outside during the growing season, but then can't withstand the cold. So anything under like 45 degrees, something like that, you wanna bring it in. But yeah, if you put it out on a patio or something in the growing months, it'll love that. It loves the heat and humidity.
And full sun or afternoon shade?
It can, this in particular, and a lot of the cacti can certainly withstand full sun if you kind of slowly introduce it.
Yeah.
So it's like if I went out into just out and didn't put any sun protection on, I would totally burn.
Yeah.
But eventually I would get a tan and could be out in the sun more. A lot of these are the same way. So if you are introducing it, it's helpful to put it out usually in like April where it gets some afternoon shade, maybe starting with that. And then after a couple weeks, you can warm it up to that full sun just so it doesn't burn.
Yeah.
Definitely wouldn't kill it, but it might give it a little sunburn, make it not so pretty, which is kind of the whole point of this one.
And I know one of the biggest things with cactuses, any cactus and succulents, is the soil.
Yes.
And that's probably the quickest way people kill them, is drowning them and their roots.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about the soil and what they like.
Yeah, so I tell customers all the time in here, the most important thing is light, but the next most important thing, which is almost equally important, is the soil. And put simply, you want it to be really nice and well draining. So we sell here a product called Black Gold Cactus Mix, and it's a great product, but I always recommend people to make it even more well aerated with like perlite or charcoal or just rocks. But yeah, anything you can do to make the soil more aerated, that's so important. And it's also critical that they have drainage.
Yeah.
So do not put your cacti in pots that don't have drainage holes at the bottom, because that will kill them really quickly.
Yeah.
Just super well draining soil. I use a cactus mix, like the Black Gold Cactus Mix. I use that for all my aeroids. So, and then I actually make it more well draining for the cacti.
Yeah. I know a common misconception with potting soil and cactus too is sand, because you think desert sand, but sand will actually hold water and make them rot. So don't put sand with your cactuses. It'll actually hurt them and kill them.
Maybe you can do a little bit, maybe, but you don't want to. Yeah, you definitely don't want to do too much.
But perlite, that white stuff that you see in soil, you can buy bags of just perlite to really up the percentage in the sand, in the soil, and that's going to help them tremendously.
Yeah, perlite's great.
Yeah.
Love perlite. It's cheap too.
Yeah,
it's a good way to do it.
So there's some flowers I saw around. I really want to go take a look at some of those.
Let's do it.
Cool. So one of the most kind of spectacular displays that cactuses do are their flowers. I know they're a lot of times short-lived, which is why I'm excited to see this Echinopsis flower, because I think it's like a day.
Usually in here,
usually
about
just
a day.
But it has this big, white, huge, spectacular flower that opens in like the morning and then closes in the evening, and it's done. It has this really cool fuzzy stem also, but you can see little small flowers forming there. But this is a relatively common cactus houseplant that people have that has these really fun flowers. This one's really fun with these little orange bell flowers on it.
In general, the smaller the flowers, the longer that they last.
Okay.
So the really spectacular ones, like you said, usually only last a day. Sometimes in the wild, it's like a night, like one night they'll open. But the smaller ones can stay in bloom for much longer times, and they bloom more frequently as well.
Yeah. These big spikes are really fun and dramatic too, of these aloes.
Yes, that one's a Gasteria,
Okay.
but very similar family to the aloe. Haworthias, aloes, Gasterias, they're all relatively similar. They're going to look different than some of the more cactus appearing ones, but they're still succulents.
And they're all directly related to what everybody knows, aloe vera.
Yeah, I would say that they're like cousins at least.
Okay.
Yeah, everyone knows the aloe vera, but there are so many different types of aloes. That's just one specific species.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of aloes.
Yeah. So this big kind of leafy one over here with the trunk and these crazy red flowers. Tell me about this.
Yeah, he's, I would say, a little bit rare. Common name is a Buddha belly. Jatropha is the Latin term, but it flowers almost constantly. So you'll see those going all the time. Also very common for it to go into dormancy. So there are a lot of succulents that are leafy, and I have a lot of customers get scared or freaked out when they lose their leaves, and a lot of times I say it's totally fine.
Yeah.
They're just going dormant. Just give it time. They don't always need to go dormant, but it's completely natural for lots of them to stay dormant in the winter, and then they'll just come back out and pop off when it gets nice and warm and sunny again.
Yeah, I can even see it pushing a new flower bud, like
Yeah,
deep down in there, while it's got this one already blooming.
And those can get huge.
Oh, really? Like
Yeah,
big,
a lot
big.
of these can get huge.
Cool.
They're
Yeah.
slow growing, especially, and that's gonna be true for almost all these. Inside of a house, they're going to be very slow growing. But like theoretically in the wild, a lot of these cacti want to turn into trees essentially, right?
Yeah.
That are like
Yeah.
tens of feet tall. But in the house, realistically, it's not gonna get that big.
Yeah. So I don't think we could be complete talking about cactus and succulents without talking about crown of thorns, euphorbias. So, which is a massive family, but these are probably one of the more common euphorbias, I would say, that is grown as a houseplant with these little flowers that come in a wide range of color. Tell me a little bit about these.
Yeah, so the thing that is true for all euphorbias is that they have this characteristic like white sap on the inside of them, which you can see if you ever, for example, have a pencil cactus, which is another type of euphorbia. You see how different these look, both euphorbias. But if you broke a little arm off of that, you would see this milky white sap on the inside that is you can break one. Yeah, for sure. But it's pretty irritating and toxic to the skin. So
Right.
it's not dangerous necessarily, but when I'm working in here, I get euphorbia sap on me all the time, and I immediately go and wash off.
Okay.
Because it can really irritate your skin. You
Yeah.
definitely don't want to get that in your eyes.
Right.
Or if you have kids, you just don't want them to be getting it in their body. Something like a euphorbia is really just going to be toxic.
Okay.
You know, if your dog or cat eats that, it's definitely not good, and you don't want that. But most likely, they're just going to like vomit it up and get a little sick. It's not going to usually be life-threatening unless they eat like the entire thing. So
Right,
it would be
yeah.
pretty difficult to cause lasting damage in that way. But it's definitely not good. It is still toxic.
Yeah. So these are super cool. Tell me about this cactus.
Yeah, so a lot of people look over these, but these are saguaro cactuses, which are the kind of famous native cacti of Arizona, specifically like the Tucson region.
Yeah.
And they really only grow there, and they're protected there as well. So they
Yeah.
care a lot about their saguaros. You can't just cut them down there.
Yeah.
And you're starting to see them more in cultivation now. If you're lucky and you go to a good plant store, they might have a very tiny variety of them, maybe like an inch or two tall, really small. But I've never seen one outside of Arizona that are this big.
Yeah.
And we brought these by hand from Arizona, so that's how I know they're hard to come by.
Yeah.
Because you pretty much just have to like take them yourself. And they're shockingly heavy. Like if you try to pick this up, I'm pretty strong, and that is like probably 50 to 100 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's because the trunk is storing water for the few weeks that the Arizona gets rain. It holds that water for the rest of the year, right?
That's right. These are like perfectly built for those specific drought conditions. So this is all just complete water, thick, dense water in there. Yeah, and the thing to know about them too is that they're really slow growing. So these are really old. I mean, I think when they're small, they grow about an inch a year when they are those small, you know, you see them in like 4-inch pots. So it takes a long time, especially in a home. If you get a saguaro cactus and you put it in your house, even if it's in a south-facing window, I mean, I would treat it more like a little statuesque thing that's going to basically stay the same size.
A conversation piece.
There you go.
Yeah.
And tell people about what they are, because if you go to Arizona, they'll talk to you about them. They're really important and special to them there.
Yeah.
They're a really cool plant.
Because they support a lot of wildlife out there too, is a big part of that.
Yeah.
So of course I was drawn to this in this greenhouse. I mean, this is the king right now. Tell me a bit about this plant.
Yeah, people always come in here and ask about this one, wondering if it's for sale. And it's not at this point, just because we can't really move it.
Yeah.
It's so heavy and difficult to maneuver.
Yeah.
But a lot of people think it's an agave. It's actually not. It's a furcrea, or a false agave is the common name for it. Very similar though, same care. But yeah, you can see it grows absolutely huge. You get these sharp, as it matures, you get these really sharp kind of razor edges. Like a lot of succulents that can very much hurt if you run into them. I know from experience.
The indentations on the back of the leaf from the previous leaves are so interesting and kind of architectural. I just love that detail of it is just such an interesting, minute thing.
And they're slow growing too. I mean, relatively, it takes them a while for those to open up. So they've been imprinted on there for a while.
Yeah.
But these are some of the this one's going to be a lot faster growing than most agaves, which is what allows it to get to this massive size.
Yeah.
If I had to guess, this one's probably like 20 years old. Something like that, if I had to guess.
Yeah. And it's still not shot up a bloom stalk, kind of like some of these over here that we've seen.
Yeah. And I'm really hoping it doesn't. Because it makes my life. Yeah.
It busts a hole in the roof.
They are monocarpic in that, if you see that one over there, a lot of plants, succulents and otherwise, when they bloom, produce huge flowers that in the wild can almost become their own like trees.
Right.
Which are beautiful to look at, and they last several months, or they can last a long time, but it kills the plant that it actually comes out of. So the parent plant that produces that bloom ends up dying, but eventually you can see the flowers on the actual, or I don't know what the term for it, the florets on the big flower become their own pups.
Yeah.
And so when that falls to the ground, the hope is that those pups that either form up there or down underneath the plant in some other species form their own new plants.
Yeah, I mean, and just for scale, like this plant's like 3 or 4 feet, about 3 or 4 feet, and its stalk is 12 feet tall. So like this big one's gonna send up what, like a 30 or 40 foot tall stalk?
I've never seen it in person, but I know, in the wild, they can truly, the blooms look like trees. They almost have like woody stalks. It's amazing to see, and they can last longer than people think.
Right, cool. Well, whether something this giant or the little specialized succulents and cactuses, there's a huge world of them that is very interesting and worthwhile growing, and just with a little specific care and the right conditions, you can grow cactuses at home in your windowsill, on the south or west face window, right?
Yeah.
Like the most sun.
I tell people for a lot of plants, but this is especially true for cactuses, that if you have a plant, let's say a small one, put yourself in the eyes of that plant. So if the plant had eyes, from its perspective, can it see the blue of the sky through a window? And if the answer is yes to that, then it's probably going to do well. That's probably enough light.
Yeah.
And you get bonus points if it can see the yellow ball of the sun through a window, like in a south-facing window or a west-facing window in the afternoon, bonus points. But as long as you have that really clear sight line and good, well-draining soil, they're probably going to do well.
Yeah, cool. Well, thanks for your time. I appreciate all the information you've given us, and go grow some cactuses.
For inspiring garden tours, growing tips, and garden projects, visit our website at volunteergardener.org or on YouTube at the Volunteer Gardener channel, and like us on Facebook.